Hello everyone, Amer back again with another Mission Impossible episode review. This time I'm happy to say, as I adjust my camera, that we have moved on to Season 5, and it's about time. As I think I mentioned at the beginning of Season 4, everybody has kind of a different idea of the show after Season 3 ended. I pointed out that Season 3 had its share of some clunkers as well, and yes, the following seasons are a little bit of a mixed bag, but by the same token, had everything stayed the same, we'd be complaining about that as well. So let's find ways to enjoy it, I think is probably the best way to look at it. And I'm certainly going to enjoy doing the reviews for this season as well as the two that follow it, for good and bad. Let's see how today shakes out. Today I'm going to be reviewing Season 5, Episode 1, the very first one, and it is called The Killer. So this one starts with a cold open. Get used to that. I think pretty much all of the episodes in Season 5 start out with a cold open where we kind of set the stage for the mission as it's about to happen. Unlike previous episodes where we generally start with Jim going somewhere and getting instructions, or sometimes we have personal missions, but that's a whole side note. So in this cold open, we see a guy who we will find out is named Eddie Lorca. He's in his apartment with his girlfriend who's totally jamming out to some tunes. Lorca gets a call for a contract murder and discusses the usual arrangements. He says goodbye to the girl, heads off to prepare. We cut to Jim finding a fisherman and uses some spy speak to find his instructions in a tackle box as the fisherman walks away. The mission. Lorca has been given his assignment by someone named Scorpio. Without any knowledge of who, where, and when Lorca will strike, the IMF must prevent the murder and learn Scorpio's identity. In the apartment scene, we are told that Lorca works completely at random and makes his plan up as he goes along, which draws the admiration of new female agent Dana Lambert, played by Leslie Warren, who will be a regular for this season. The IMF has a building which they can turn into the type of nondescript hotel Lorca seems to like, and they'll need 20 minutes to prepare it once he arrives. Lorca arrives at LAX Airport, Los Angeles, as Jim and Dana and their assistants get ready at the hotel. They have a small army of people to prepare. Lorca picks the Bauer Hotel randomly out of the phone book and approaches cabbie Willie, but changes his mind instead of getting into cabbie Paris's taxi and announcing his destination. Paris tells him it'll take 20 minutes to get there, but Lorca says the phone book says 15, so Paris gets moving. The IMF's crew starts making letterhead and paraphernalia like glasses, bed sheets, ashtrays, and signage for the hotel as quickly as they can, and Jim hopes that the others can do what needs to be done to buy them the time they need. Paris drives slowly until Lorca realizes that he's not going at the limit, so he's forced to speed up. Dana sets up a hidden camera in Lorca's room, and Willie messes with the traffic light to delay Paris's cab for about a minute or so, until Lorca gets impatient and Willie is forced to let it go green. Willie then mobilizes 2 trucks to trap the cab, and Lorca is about to bail until Paris takes a path over the sidewalk to get out slowly. Lorca finally does arrive and tells desk clerk Jim he'd like to pick his own room number, and he rolls a 7, so Barney quickly puts numbers on the doors. Paris and Willie come back to the IMF's control room behind the hotel desk. And so the IMF's watch begins to see what he does. Lorca decides not to use the phone in his room, so Barney and Willie man the cabs in case he leaves. But he instead goes to the payphone in the lobby and calls the number he was given. Tells Flo, the girl who answers, to come to the hotel in 45 minutes. Paris calls Flo back and uses Lorca's voice to tell her to come to the nearby park in 30 minutes instead. Paris meets Flo and gets a folder from her with instructions. There's a picture of an African-American man who's the target, so Barney's picture is substituted, and Dana gets changed into what I guess shady underworld women in the 70s wore. Dana heads up to Lorca's room, does her best to imitate Flo's voice and mannerisms, as Lorca reviews the information and says that Dana isn't the girl he talked to, worrying her that he's on to what's happening. But Lorca just wants to get a little bit closer, so Dana obliges to keep Lorca busy. When Lorca gets a little bit pushy, Dana slaps him and angrily heads out, telling him to do his job. Paris and Jim watch, impressed with Dana's moxie. The IMF tells Lorca's target, Barton, to go to safety with Willie, as Jim and Barney prepare the room with a dummy at the desk, as Lorca prepares as well for his coming task. Paris is ready in the cab, but Lorca decides to walk, so he follows but loses him because of a truck in the way. Lorca calls Barton's hotel and asks him to hold the room above Barton's 526 as Paris goes into the room across the hall from Barton's. Lorca arrives at the hotel and goes up the fire escape to the 6th floor instead of the main entrance, picking the locked room 626. He sets up his gun but then rolls his dice again, rolling 11, and changes his mind. Calling 526, he asks Barney if he can see him in 15 minutes. Barney obliges. So Lorca pulls out a timer and starts crushing some golf balls, prying open the air vent in his room as the IMF waits, and waits, and waits. And Lorca sends his explosive golf balls down the ventilation shaft. Lorca calls the room again, claiming he's in the lobby to confirm that Barney's still there. Stationed outside, Willie looks for Lorca, but doesn't find him. Lorca leaves the room, making sure not to leave any fingerprints. Jim and the rest of the crew are completely confused until Willie spots Lorca leaving out the front entrance and calls the room again from a payphone. Jim finally realizes what's about to happen and tells Barney to get out of the room quick. Barney is shaken, but fortunately unharmed from the blast, as a throng of people gather outside the hotel. The IMF associate who is watching the service entrance tells the crowd that a man's been killed, so Lorca calls Dana for his payoff. She says she'll meet him at a corner in 20 minutes. She does, and a car drives by and shoots Dana. Lorca finds that instead of actual cash, the envelope is full of newspaper. As Dana dies, she tells Lorca that Scorpio wanted him dead too, and it's a double cross for both of them. Lorca gets into Willie's nearby cab and gives him an address for a house up in the hills. Dana joins the rest of the IMF who follow the cab. Lorca smashes a glass door and breaks into the house where a man is sitting and reading. They exchange angry words and shoot each other, with Jim telling us that Scorpio was Alfred E. Chambers, and Paris calls the police. Jim rolls Lorca's dice, and it comes up snake eyes. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of A+. Stay with me on this one, okay? This is another episode for which I have a very strong nostalgia. It's another one that I saw back in the day, some 30 years ago. And I remember thinking that, boy, this is a really fantastic hour of television. Let's start with the good. This is an absolute first-class Mission Impossible plot. The team has to figure everything out along the way with only the most basic of information. And they just have to kind of be prepared, and they're on their toes. It's a far cry from many plots we saw, especially back in season 4, but since the beginning of the series, really, where the IMF has this perfect knowledge that I've commented on many times, where, you know, they can predict exactly what is going to happen at every stage, and they're like, oh my gosh, how could they possibly predict that? This turns all of that completely on its head, right? I like the way that the IMF really, as I mentioned, they have to be on their toes. Contrast that to other missions, where a lot of the time we see Barney or Paris or somebody just kind of having to wait for another part of the plot to happen. This time, they have to be on their toes, they have to be mobilized and ready to act. Just as a for instance, when Lorca is about to go and get his instructions, Barney and Willie have to head to the cabs. Somebody has to be watching the payphone. Somebody has to be looking at the payphone probably across the street. All of those things. What's he going to do? We don't know. And instead of it just kind of going rat-a-tat-tat, there's nothing rat-a-tat-tat about this plot at all. I like that the plot is simple, but not easy to execute. Simple to follow, which is really, really great. Not easy to execute, but, that's fine. And there's suspense until the very end. I really like that as well, because since, the target, the antagonist and his plot, what he's going to do is unpredictable, the show's overall plot is unpredictable too. That's what can maintain suspense until the very end. even the parts where the IMF, they're just waiting and they're watching Lorca when he's in his hotel room, or when they're waiting for him to surface, at the Knickerbocker Hotel where he's going to try and kill his target. Somehow, that's not boring, which is really, really refreshing, because usually when the IMF is just sitting and watching a screen, or just sitting around waiting for somebody to show up, that's tremendously boring and not a good use of television time. But because of the way this plot is laid out, it isn't boring, and the pace of the show is really, really great. Other good things, not directly related to the plot itself. There's the requisite teamwork. This is a Power of 5 episode. Love that. The only thing about commenting about the Power of 5, Jim is sort of a conductor in this plot. He's not as directly involved as the other 4 are in actively going after the target, but somebody has got to be there and be the point person to kind of make sure that the whole show, I don't mean show just as in television show, but that the whole IMF plot stays on track. And it makes sense for somebody to have to be that kind of conductor in a mission like this. So I will say that this is a great Power of 5 episode. The team earns its win. There's no way that they could win and not earn it, based on, the way that the antagonist works. Other things that I want to comment on. There's new music for for this episode. Which I think is actually pretty groovy. It kind of fits, in it. I don't really quite know how to describe it, but it's a whole different kind of feel and a different kind of vibe. And I really liked the way the music kind of added to the episode. I should give a lot of kudos to the crew, not just the actors in this case. The great storytelling. Not only is it a great plot, but it's laid out so well. The storytelling is really well done. The production and the screenplay is really, really well done. There's not a, there's not a lot of shows have kind of peaks and valleys. Not this one. This one it doesn't have that at all. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Robert Conrad as Lorca. Oh my gosh, I don't think that you could have found a better actor for this role at that particular time. He's just so perfect from beginning to end for this role. Can't say enough good things about him. So you might be wondering, okay, why does this one get an A+ and not an S or superb? I'll tell you why. And I'm going to preface it by noting, without giving any spoilers, okay, that this plot was the first one that was used for the revival series, which I'll do after we're complete. I'll review after we're done reviewing the original series. And I think it was a really, really excellent choice for the revival to start with this one. Really kicks things off well, and I will comment on that when I get there. Just a quick note: in the revival, Jim gets his mission instructions from a fisherman too. In that one, which is a really, really nice touch. It's almost like a callback to this episode, although the spy speak is completely different. Why I give this episode an A+ rather than an S is because of the ending. This isn't a case where I probably would have given this episode an S if it were not for the revival series where they remade this. The ending here is rather abrupt and a little bit weird, frankly. It makes sense from a plot standpoint that, of course, the whole point of what the IMF does with Lorca is to basically force him to confront Scorpio so they can determine who Scorpio is. Okay, that part of it is fine. So the what and the how and the where and the when and all of that makes perfect sense. What's a problem is the why. What is the deal with Scorpio? Jim comments, he picks up a book. I don't know why he has to learn the guy's identity from a book, but it's, he said, okay, it's Alfred E. Chambers. Okay, so what does that mean? Why is that even important? What's the deal about Alfred E. Chambers? I don't know. That was a little bit weird. Was it a terrible ending? No. Did the ending ruin the episode? By no means did it do that. But it just didn't quite hit. Okay? And I will comment, and I'll comment now, and I'll comment again when we do this episode in the revival. I would say that the revival, certainly the ending was better, and that's because they actually improved the story in the revival. Again, with no spoilers. In the revival, this script is done almost verbatim, okay? But there are just a couple of subtle little changes that make the mission more personal, and it makes the ending make a lot more sense. And had they done something like that in this one, I would have given this one an S for superb. I can't say anything bad. I'm just saying, that was just that one little thing. And unfortunately, it's like anything else. It's like any other movie or any other TV show, right? If you can hit all your spots and you can have a fantastic show or movie or whatever, but if the ending is not good, you walk away from it saying, oh man, I wish they had really landed that. And that's where this one falls from an S down to an A+. And that's about it. Like I said, glad we're at season 5 finally. Looking forward to doing these because, again, there's going to be some good and bad like there is in every season, frankly. And we'll see how things shake out. As always, please like this review video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please leave your comments. I'd love to hear what people have to say about this episode because I think this is one of, the really seminal episodes of Mission Impossible, and I really do love it, despite these slightly botched ending. Anyway, that's my review. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.